Hey, welcome back, high performers, to another episode of the Can't Believe I Made It podcast. As always, we're here to dive deep into the habits, rituals, and heroes' journeys of athletes and talented entrepreneurs in the wellness and entrepreneurship space. I'm your host, Desi Abeda, and today we have something special lined up for you. In celebration of Father's Day that just passed this past day, we're shaking things up with the Crosscast feature. Recently, I had the incredible opportunity to join my good friend Ben Barker on the Ben Barker Fitness podcast. Ben and I dove into some powerful topics that I knew we had to share with our community here. In our pod, we explored what it means to be an intentional father and how overcoming limiting beliefs can transform not just your life, but also the lives of your children. We discussed practical strategies like sleep hygiene, breath work, and gratitude journaling, tools that have helped both of us in our personal and parenting journeys. You'll hear us emphasize the importance of community and seeking help, sharing our experiences and advice on how to be present and creating lasting memories with your children. This conversation is packed with insights that every parent and honestly anyone looking to improve their well-being will find invaluable. So sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and get ready for an engaging and insightful discussion. Let's jump into my conversation with Ben Barker on the Ben Barker Fitness podcast. Let's get it.
Y'all, I am super pumped to have Desi, a beta, like a beta fish, on the show today from the Can't Believe I Made It podcast. What's up, bro?
Dude, I am so excited to be on with the Alpha Dad right now. I've been a fan for quite some time. And when you made the transition into strictly doing Alpha Dad things, it just reminded me that I need to get out and be an Alpha Dad myself, man. So I am so excited to be on here, Ben. Thank you for the invite, bro.
Dude, I feel like this has been a long time coming. And
It really has.
I see the beautiful side of social media from you in that early on that you were like in my corner being an encouragement to me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people always see the negative side, like people leaving hateful comments. But like I could get 10 hateful comments and one comment from a guy like you that's like, keep it up, bro. That's all I need.
Yeah.
And so like if you're another dad out there, never underestimate the power of like an encouraging word to another dad.
I think that's so important because oftentimes there's like this weird competition, and because we're all a brotherhood of trying to figure it out when, let's be honest, no one has this figured out. Like I don't know about you, Ben, but I have two kids, a 7-year-old and a 1-year-old, about to be 38 this year. I don't know what I'm doing. And I think just merely just going out and creating some community, I think is such a beautiful thing, man. So it's been cool to see your rise, your growth, and I can call myself an OG. Came over from TikTok into everything else, dude. So this is great.
Hey, I appreciate it, bro. And just tell me a little bit about you, your podcast, Can't Believe I Made It, and then we're just going to jump into the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, man. So by trade, if you will, so I'm a registered dietitian and an online entrepreneur. I have my hands in a couple things. I have a couple coaching programs that I coach with. I also am a co-founder of the Dietitian Business Collective, where we're teaching fitness professionals how to build their online business. And then some of the other things that I do as well is I'm actually the dietitian for Red Bull. So I have my hand in some different things, but I think probably the biggest passion project that I have, and you just mentioned it, is the Can't Believe I Made It podcast. It's gone through some real rebrands, and I say that, Ben, because I think, and I'm sure you get this a lot with a lot of clients that you're coaching, is that you get to these moments where your creative endeavors and the things that you're throwing yourself into, they're going to seek an evolution in the same way that you do personally. And so for me, the podcast getting to season 8, it just hit 10,000 downloads, which I'm like, yo, this is a cool milestone.
Let's go.
130 episodes. For me, it was a gift to myself 4 years ago, because I overthought this project so much, man. I think a lot of people get lost in these limiting beliefs about getting something out there that is a really vulnerable experience. And so for me, it was just a gift to myself on my birthday, where I was like, you know what? I've bought enough coursework. I've done the education that I need. I'm just going to go out and just launch this and take messy action. And I think for a lot of the listeners that are listening right now, whether it's your fitness journey or health journey or anything like that, sometimes just going out and taking messy action is the best thing for yourself, because it allows you just to create some progression. So those are the things, man, I think on a creative side that I absolutely love. And then obviously I'm a proud husband, father of two, and also a little puppy that we just brought up here to Oregon on a West Coast road trip coming from Arizona. So those are the things and the people outside of my other family that I'm doing all this for, man.
I love that. And bro, I'm so glad that you mentioned messy action because I am a fan and
Yes.
my life is basically messy action. And, I struggle. I think one thing, and this isn't the direction we're going, but, like I struggle with anxiety.
Yeah.
And my life motto has become like action alleviates anxiety.
Oh my
And
God.
so
It's
I find if I just like attack something, like it gives me a focus and something to do rather than just like wallowing in self pity.
that part is so hard, man. I mean, I think you have to be very, very self-aware to know what that next action you need to
Yeah.
take. And Ben, I
Yeah.
love that too, because for me, getting out and being active is in a lot of times like my ceremony. It's my way to get back into my body, get back into the present moment. And it looks differently. And again, I love all the Alpha Dad posts because me turning 38 this year, like I want to be the most athletic person in the room.
Let's go.
And I feel like honestly, it keeps you young, man. Like it keeps you opportunistic. It keeps you in so many really great avenues. So once again, dude, flowers to you. I love your shit. It's great.
I appreciate it, bro. So something that I'm asking a lot of Desi today, y'all, because we're
I'm
gonna
in
try to
here. I'm
squeeze a
here
lot
for
of
it.
action into one episode. I feel like one of the big things that you talk about is, breaking the barriers and overcoming like limiting
Yeah.
beliefs. And I think that, and I'm sure you can attest to this. I think, that can be, in your marriage, in your nutrition,
Yeah.
diet, like your work career. Like, what have you found that are some of the things that you got to like dig down deep to find to break through some of those barriers?
Man, being vulnerable is really hard. I think it's really sexy to say like, hey, go be vulnerable,
Yeah.
especially if we're talking about it from a male perspective and a dad perspective for all the other alpha dads out there. If you don't have a community or a culture set at home where feelings are okay and feelings are warranted and we talk about hard things, it's going to be really hard for me to take a step back and be like, hey, dude, you got to be vulnerable. But I think what is really helpful about that process is you get to take messy action on what vulnerability brings about, because from there, you can actually start to address some messages that you've been telling yourself pretty much your whole life. And I think if you have past conditioning that has told you that your feelings don't matter,
Yep.
that you shouldn't feel as much, it makes total sense to me that if I'm working with you and I'm asking you to overcome some of these messages that are coming up for you and you don't want to talk to them, it makes total sense to me because you haven't created a culture and you haven't been given an opportunity to be vulnerable. So I think, Ben, that's probably the first thing that I look at.
I love that, dude. I love that. And man, I think something that I found big for me, and it can be different, man, but is like you said, like culture is a big deal and
Yeah,
like finding a bit of community. And that's one thing that I think is cool about like when you see like social media in its purest form,
yeah,
like you can find like even if you don't have somewhere where you can physically go and find community, you can find it online. And there's pockets of like good people. And, I see a lot on your page about, working with high performers.
yeah,
And you've got to find other people that are striving for the same thing. And then
100%.
I think it's your job once you find those people to grab some other dudes and pull them up by their bootstraps along with you.
Like that, it goes back to that competition thing, right? I think all of us, if there's a healthy form of competition, that's where you see progress. But don't get it twisted. I think I really try to push this message, Ben, and I'm pretty sure that you and I are aligned with this. Is as you seek an evolution, take people with you, because the hope is that you also seek some sort of mentorship or some sort of community where they're going to uplift you as well. And I can tell you, Ben, and I know you probably align with this as well. If you surround yourself by 5 people who are incredibly gritty, conscientious, loving, vulnerable, you're likely to become the sixth. So I think community is such a huge asset when it comes to growth.
Bro, I had somebody on the show last week, and for those of you who are not married, like tune in real fast. I'd never heard it said this way, but we were talking about, like you're the sum of your five closest
Yeah,
friends. He's like, bro, something that you don't hear people talk a lot about is that you're around your spouse more than anybody else. He
dude.
was like, so if you
Facts.
haven't chosen yet choose wisely, because that's who you
Yeah.
spend your most time with for like the next whatever 60, 50 years.
That's so true. I mean, marriage in itself is like a whole new ball game that
Yeah.
maybe you can kind of glean information from other married couples that you know, or maybe your parents if you've been fortunate enough to have parents who had a really strong but imperfect marriage. You
Yeah.
know, for me, coming from a family of divorce, like I understood fairly early on of the things that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't want to focus on the negative, right? But I think sometimes the negative or failures, if you will, actually give you a lot of data. They give you a lot of information with how you want to interact with the world. So, dude, I totally agree with that. Take your time picking your person. It's okay.
Yep. Yep. So, guys, lean in real quick, because I think the real reason we're here, and the real
Bro, man.
reason like Desi and I connected on this week, was talking about being an intentional father. And I love that Desi also covers like peak performance. And I'm just going to try to like morph this into one thing,
Yeah,
but talking about unlocking like peak performance as a father. And I love the
yeah,
pinned post that I saw on your page, and some things that I think are still slept on. We were talking about the hustle culture,
yeah,
and like, guys, sleeping is okay, and I encourage it.
yeah. Please.
And on your pinned post, you talked about, sleep tracking, breath work, and gratitude. Could you
Yeah.
talk about some ways, like as dads, that we can like implement those things and how it can help us be better intentional fathers?
Dude, I'm so glad that we're talking about this because those three things are three things that I completely stumbled across on accident. And so when I first started working in professional sports, I was visibly seeing something where if we're looking at just their performance as it stands, we want to look at everything that they're doing as a system of rituals, right? And one thing that I was finding, the guys would come in and they'd be slamming caffeine, they'd be slamming other things and just really just performing like shit. And it started to get me to think about, and I was like, all right, well, we hear that sleep hygiene is this valuable tool, right? But how can we get metrics behind it? And so it actually started my path down actually doing sleep tracking and gleaning some information. So I think I talk about this in the post, but I'm a huge fan of Sleep Cycle. It's not a perfect app, but it does give you some qualitative measure of things that you can do to improve your sleep. And you kind of know this, Ben, like if we gamify something in most cases, we're probably going to come back to it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I really love about it. And so I've been tracking my sleep for the past 6 years. So I have 60 years worth of data that I'm gleaning from.
Cool.
And what has been really cool is not only helping these athletes, but also seeing different versions. Obviously, there's the Aura Ring. There's a bunch of different tools now that weren't there 6 years ago. But when we're looking at peak performance, I think that we can all agree that we are much better individuals. We're less likely to react explosively. We're more likely to take care of ourselves if we sleep. I think we know
Yeah.
that, right? So
100%.
so I think sleep is that thing that I stumbled across that I'm finding with a lot of these peak athletes and also peak fathers, if you will, of just laying the groundwork. I saw this on a post a couple years ago and it still rings true to me. But essentially it was like, getting up for a 4 a.m. run after you've only slept 3 to 4 hours is like stepping over $100 bills to pick up pennies. And I
Yeah.
use that analogy all the time because that's what sleep hygiene is. So I think, Ben, that's the first thing. And in reference to the other things, breath work is pretty much something I stumbled across as well. I'm seeing it with a bunch of other uh, mental health specialists. I'm seeing it with some other performance coaches where we're trying to get back into that present moment. And the way that we do that is this powerful thing that we know as our breath, right? And I think when we're acting in a state of reactivity, it's really easy to not notice that you're chest breathing, right? And that your neck is tense and that you're kind of clenching your jaw. But that opportunity where you can take that deep diaphragmatic breath, you can just literally connect with the moment. I think it provides us with so much gold because I mean, I don't know about you, Ben. I've definitely lost my shit on my kids.
Oh
I've
yeah.
lost my shit on my wife. And after I was being reactive, I took that failure, if you will, and I'm like, okay, how can I engage in the present moment, and how can I do this in a way where if I do in fact need a break, I can communicate that because if I'm in a state of trigger, it's going to be really hard for me to center myself. So I think the breathwork piece is something that I've seen on the professional athlete side, and now I'm seeing with busy parents. and people that I work with now. And I think the last thing is that the gratitude journal, man. I'm a huge 5 minute journal person. It
Okay,
literally
cool.
takes you 5 minutes, and there's incredible science to back what it looks like to be in the present moment, and what it looks like to be thinking about the ways in which you are actually progressing in life. Because I don't know about you, man, I can get lost in all the things that I'm not doing, and that is not a comfortable place for me.
100%. Man, something, a couple cool things that you said that I really liked as we're talking about, with Father's Day coming up. We want to talk about being intentional fathers. And I think the couple things, I love that you said earlier about parents who had a long, imperfect marriage.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
you got to have that perspective that it's never going to be perfect. But something that I've been working on with my kids, like when I do lose my temper, I have a temper, man. And at times when I do lose my temper in front of my kids, which is the last thing you want, later on when I come back to my kids, I'm like, hey guys, like dad's not perfect.
Yeah.
And like, I'm
You come
sorry.
back though. You come
Yes.
back.
And that's an important thing, I think, for dads, like with your kids, like being vulnerable, like that my kids I am your father and I'm in charge, but I made a mistake and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
and I'll legit be like, guys, I here's how I could have handled this better. And this was like a small thing though. And I always like to tell them, like, this doesn't have to dictate the rest of our day, or when y'all lose your temper, that
I
doesn't
love
dictate
that.
the rest of our day. Like, this is what happened. I'm sorry, or you're sorry. Now let's move on and like make it a good day.
Ben, I love that, man. Like it's something, my wife is a mental health therapist, so like I credit in the ongoing joke, on my podcast and in our house is that I'm really just the mouth. Like everything that I say that people are like, "Oh, that's good," like it comes from her.
Yeah.
But one thing that we practice as a family, and it's really interesting seeing it come out in my 7-year-old right now, is you're allowed to make mistakes, but the coming back is is where we get to continue our healthy relationship, right? That's the mending. And what's really interesting is like I'll have my 7-year-old literally giving me the same attitude that I'm giving her. Like she's a really beautiful version of me, like all the good things, all the bad things.
Yeah.
But she'll give me shit, right? And I'll kind of be taken back, like, wow, like why are you talking to your dad like that? Like what the heck? So instead of being reactive, sometimes again I don't do this perfectly. Sometimes I'll take a step back, I'll take a break and be like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and take a break right now. Let's go ahead and have you do the same. And she'll come back and be like, hey, Dad, are you open to an apology? And I'm like, okay. There are times where I have no idea what I'm doing, but you know what? In this moment right here, I feel good about our parenting.
Yeah, dude. That's the best. Like when you see
It
like
really
the
is.
fruits of your labor
I
and it makes
know.
you feel good about yourself. And they're out there, y'all, if you really watch.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to turn it back on you because I'm having a lot of fun with the creativity behind these like Alpha Dad Dojo. But we're starting to see your kids like be with you, which I think is
Yeah.
such a beautiful thing. And Ben, if we're like trying to lead as healthy role models, what have been some of the moments for you where you have felt like, okay, I'm doing a good job? Maybe not perfect, but I'm doing a good job.
Man, something I've worked really hard on is like as much as I am into fitness and sports, and I always have been, it's always been my thing. It's like the only thing I've ever done. And I've really tried to make it a point not to live vicariously through my children.
Dude, it's so hard.
And it is very hard. And I know the importance of them exercising, like the mental health benefits and how it's going to help them later on in sports. But I've really tried not to force it on them. And so what I've
Yeah,
done over like the last year is I've had them exercise, like not necessarily mandatory, but it's on the
yeah,
schedule 2 days a week. And they just like know it's coming. And I'm just explaining it in the way I'm like, guys, like sometimes my son will just, I've told him like, it's okay to be honest. Like if you don't want to do it, like,
yeah,
sometimes like he'll be like, Dad, I don't want to do this. And I'm like, hey man, listen, this is tough. And
yeah.
I think sometimes you've got to learn that like hard things produce the results that you want.
So true.
And they've really bought into it, dude. And it's made me so proud. And it's like literally, we do like, it's like a 15-minute workout, Desi. It's
Yeah,
like not a big deal, but they've really bought into it. And I'm doing I'm not asking a lot, very simple things like teaching them like modified push ups. They do like
yeah.
ring rows for their back and like body weight squats.
Balance, baby.
Yeah, dude. And they've really bought into it and they're getting like proficient at the movements. And I think they're like starting to see the value in it. And that's been a big win for me. And then other than that, when we go to do other things, like my wife and I will go to the park and we'll set up a blanket and we'll run. And the kids we take toys for them, bubbles, and they just want to join in with us on the workout. And that's been pretty cool.
I love it. We have something fairly similar with my 7-year-old. Like we love being outside. Like we live in Arizona. And now that we're here in Oregon, we're definitely going to be hiking throughout the weekends and camping and doing things because we love that. But I feel like two things that have helped me to be like, okay, like I'm being a healthy role model is not only just my little girl's, relationship with food and how like it's okay to say no at times and how to explore that. Like I'm still doing that imperfectly, even as a dietitian. Like I'm supposed to be a food expert, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to do here. But I think what's been really cool is like we'll go on hikes and she'll get a log and she'll throw it on her back or throw it in front carry and start doing some like front squats. Like, Dad, what do you think? And I'm like, I love this. I don't care. You're gonna get better with your form in time. Like it's cool.
Yeah.
Like I love this. So I'm in total alignment with you when it comes to that. I love that, dude.
Yeah, and you touched on it too, and I'd love to hear your perspective on nutrition, as a father, because like one of the things that I have done, my nutrition's like pretty dialed in, but I also have
Yeah.
I have a great relationship with food, man. Like
Yeah.
if I want to have pizza, like I'm gonna have pizza and I'm going
Yeah.
to enjoy it,
Yeah.
right? But it's something like I think it's good to involve your kids in the why.
Hmm.
And so like lots of times, like I let my kids, like we don't like keep like soda in the house and they don't drink soda, but like I'll let
Yeah.
my kids have candy or a donut on occasion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes they'll be like, we'll have had something like a donut for breakfast. In the afternoon, my daughter will be like, Dad, can I have ice cream? And I'll be like, man, so no. I'm like, we
I
had
thought about it. No.
I'm like, we had a donut for breakfast and that was our thing for the day. And so
Uh-huh.
she'll be like, too many carbs. And I'll be like, yes, too many carbs.
I love that because I mean, this is kind of like what I usually use Ben as like an elevator pitch. So, like, I'm the dietitian that ended up doing a whole TEDx talk about how I failed feeding my kid. And so, when my little girl was 7, my wife had to go back to work and she was about 3 months and she was still breastfeeding. So, it was the first time giving her the bottle. And I remember like it wasn't happening. Like we were both crying, like it was horrible. And then finally when I went to a breastfeeding support group as a dad, I mean imagine that. Like
Yep.
there's not many like me, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm there, I'm the only dude in there. And I was asking them like, hey, what am I doing wrong here? Like at the time it was kind of serendipitous that I had just gotten laid off. So like I had time. Like my job was being a dad.
Yep.
And so like throughout that like coaching session it was really interesting because when the person saw me give my daughter the bottle, she was like, Desi, it kind of looks like you're going to battle right now. Cause I was like, ready, Ben. I was like, she's not taking this. And she's like, what if you just like started to play with her and started to create an environment of safety? And since that moment, she took the bottle. Like I said, I kind of went off and did a TED talk about how I failed at this as a dietitian. I'm supposed to be the expert, but I think it was a really nice tell into what it was going to be like, not only just in her life, but now that my son is one, of like how to create that culture of nutrition and healthier relationships with food. Because even to this day, dude, like my girl like has a sweet tooth. Like she looks forward to desserts.
Yeah.
And I think as parents, if we're really trying to make sure that we're not like involving a bartering relationship in creating that sort of push pull type of relationship, I think it's equally as important to test things out and to communicate as a family because we did that recently. There's a while there, Ben, where like we would call her hunger levels like shelves, right? So we would say like dinner shelf, dessert shelf. So she was getting to a point where she was like, my dinner shelf is full. Can we have dessert? And like, are you still hungry? Like, no, like, well, if you're not hungry, what makes you want dessert? And she's like, well, my dessert shelf is empty. Like, I'm good. I was like, damn it, this worked against us. So like we actually started going with more of a path of like, okay, listen, we're gonna put the dessert on your plate. You can eat it first if you want. You can eat it in the middle, or you can eat it afterwards. It's up to you. But we don't want to be making it about just the dessert. We want to be making it about, hey, where's your protein? Where's your carbohydrates? Do you have color on your plate? So it kind of goes back to that, dude. And I think even right now, like 7 years into the game and at fatherhood, just as much as a registered dietitian, I still don't know what I'm doing sometimes, and that's okay.
Yeah, bro. And I think we're just talking about being intentional fathers. On one of your posts, I saw something about seeking help.
Yeah,
And I don't even remember what it was in reference to, like something with peak performance, right? But I think as fathers too, I think that was a beautiful thing. I mean, not many
yeah.
dads would go to a breastfeeding class
No.
and seek help. And this is important, guys. It's like as a father, it's like you've got to be like humble enough like to ask for help. And if you see
Yeah,
another dad who's like crushing the game, like don't
dude,
be scared to
please
reach out.
ask questions.
Yes. Especially if you're young, man. There's things that I could have
Yeah.
helped myself a lot, because I've got an 8-year-old, I've got 4 kids, and I feel
Damn,
like
I
I'm
didn't know you
doing
had
better.
4.
I have 4 kids, bro.
Oh my God, I'm
Yeah.
overwhelmed for you right now.
Listen. I am blessed with a good wife and a great partner in that
Yeah,
that man, like, and she's like yin and I'm yang. It's
I
a
love
great
it.
partnership. But man, like I could have helped myself a lot early on had I
I
reached out to
know.
some other people and sought help in certain areas. And I think, and I don't want to overgeneralize, but I don't feel like men in particular are great at asking for help. And there's
They're
nothing wrong
not.
with it.
They're not. Like I'd be interested, and we can kind of take this off air, just kind of pick your brain. Like I created my business solely to work with dads, right?
Yep.
And I got to a point where I was like, okay, I know my message is landing because the type of dad clients that I'm getting like are exactly the people that I want to work with and the people that I thrive with when I first started my business. But then I got to a point where I was like, okay, it's really hard because what I also understand about dads is that it's really hard for them to ask for help. And if I'm building a business around people asking for help, I should probably open it up a little bit, right? And that was the moment for me that like things really skyrocketed and it was great. But I always go back, and it kind of reminds me, Ben, of what you're doing right now. I always go back where I totally agree with what you're talking about. It's really hard for dads in general to ask for help. And I think just like you, I could have made my rookie years in dadhood much easier had I asked for help because there was a lot of things not only that I didn't know, but also I didn't know that like my feelings were valued. I didn't know that it was okay sometimes to be like, I'm not okay.
Yep.
And I think it goes back to the vulnerability piece, the community piece. And just like you said, like if you see a dad crushing it out there, it's very likely that he's in struggle mode. Like let's just call it what it is. Like
Yep.
everyone's in struggle mode. But if you see a dad crushing it out there, like one, give them their flowers. Like, hey man, I see what you're doing there. Because most of us, I'm not gonna generalize here, but most of us, um, words of affirmation they do a really beautiful thing. We might not show it like, oh, thank you, I appreciate it. We might kind of like blow it off, but that goes internal. That goes into that like inner child where it's like, okay, thank you for that.
Yeah. Bro, and I'm like if you guys have never read, especially if you're married, like the five love languages book
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
great. And like I'm words of affirmation.
Same.
I could have like a terrible day, and somebody could be like, "Hey man, great job." And that's all I need, bro. I'm
That's
like
all you
set.
need.
That'll carry me for like 3 months.
I might not show you that like, hey, that meant a lot to me. I might be like, hey, thanks, dude, you're doing great too. But as I walk away and be like, oh, all right, that's heart nectar right there.
That got me right in the feels. Bro,
Yeah.
something that I really like that I think is kind of changing. I have a good friend, and when we were first becoming friends, like we hung out or whatever, and he was leaving. He was like, "Love you, bro," and I was like,
Yeah.
I want to be like, "Excuse me," but that's something that was a flaw in me,
Yeah.
you know. And then finally, it's just like it's okay to be like, "I love you, bro." Like, there's
Yo,
nothing
did you?
wrong with that.
Hey Ben, did you give him the mumbled "love you too"?
I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. See you later.
It's so hilarious. I'm that friend that's like, "Love you, bro." Like,
Yeah,
love you too. But
yeah,
I also think like now, especially amongst the friends that I've grown up with who are now stepping into like parenthood, uh, it is a culture thing. Like we all say we love you when we're done. And
yep,
my wife sometimes who like, I've been with her for the past 10 years, so she's still learning about different friends that I have at times. And she'll be like, was that one of your brothers? Like, who'd you say I love you to? It's like, oh, my buddy Matt. It's like, okay.
alrighty then. Desi, I don't know if you can distill this or have a quick thought off the top of your head, and I do
Absolutely.
have one.
Okay.
But being fathers, man, do you have a particular thing that you do and have found success with that's like your immediate go-to when you're like, maybe I've been on my phone too much today and I need to like invest in my children? Do you have like a go-to thing that you will do with your kids?
Yeah. There's a couple things.
Yeah.
We like to be active,
Yeah.
so going outside is something that's super special. And I think especially my little girl, like I think she's a really beautiful soul reminder of being present and what that can do if you can engage in play. I think
Yeah.
if I look at it, Ben, like play is her love language. Like you just play. And my wife makes fun of me sometimes, dude. She's like, "Oh my God, Desi, like, where is the child in you?" Because I come from a household where like there was a time for play, there's a time for structure.
Yeah.
Everything in this house better be organized. And I get lost in that too because like any sort of messy play, I'm not gonna lie to you, Ben, like I'm just like, this is different. So that part is so hard, dude. I think, but
Yeah.
play is that one thing.
What is great and what I'm loving about this is that was mine too. Um,
I love it.
and I know that you are going to be able to relate to this, and it's something that I've struggled with the last year. So when I had a real job, like a 9 to 5, the struggle was always like finding time for my kids. You get home, you're tired. And I had an odd job where I worked like mornings and evenings as a personal trainer.
I was saying, what
And
did you do?
so I managed a gym in F45, and I was a
Okay,
personal trainer before that. And so it's like, it was a bookend day. I'd be like home during the day while my kids were at school, and I'd be working in the mornings and at night when they were
the
home.
grind.
And it was a grind, bro. And so then I quit my job, and I thought it would solve all of my problems owning my own business. But
Yeah,
then the problem I found, and my wife addressed it with me. That's the great thing about having a great partner,
yeah,
is she was like, you quit your job to have more time, but now you're working on your own business all
I
hours of the
know.
day.
It's
it,
inevitable, man. Like,
it is. Because and when it's your own thing, you're more passionate about it. And
yeah,
so it's like every free moment I would find, I was putting it into my website, into my workout subscription. And she was like, I love your drive.
I
I
love it.
love it.
Never
She's
lose it.
like, but she's like, you're gonna have to have like a shut off time.
I know.
Like, and so the big thing that I've been working on, like I love play. I'm kind of the opposite of you. Like I love to play,
Yeah,
and messy play, the messier, like the better. It's great.
I love
But
that. Teach
I've
me.
had to detach myself from my phone. And one of the things that we found that really works for us, dude, is just going on like a family walk. And
Gold,
we put our phones in the diaper bag, and bro,
gold.
kids just naturally know what to do to make it fun.
I
Lots of
know.
times, like we'll go for a walk and we go to this place where there's a creek, and we end up staying like in the same spot and like skipping rocks and catching crawdads. And it's the most
Gold.
beautiful thing, dude. And the kids just know what to do, bro. They don't have to be coached, and it's just natural to them. And then you just kind of join in with them and what they're doing. And like that's like some of those purest family time.
Ben, I love that. I mean, you kind of mentioned that your wife has encouraged you to be thinking about like when is your shutdown time because I get lost in that too, man. I think, and I don't want to generalize it because I think this happens with any parent or any person that is working. Uh,
Sure.
you're I mean, finances bring freedom, right? That's kind of like why we all do what we do. Yes,
Yep.
we're passionate, but that passion needs to turn into some revenue at some point. It does. Otherwise, I can't do this passion anymore. So I think what's really interesting is my wife will come to me and she'll be like, "Hey," because I work from home too. Like I have my like office, which I'm now about to lose to my 1 year old at some point. I got to figure that out, by the way. Um, but when I'm out, like in the living room, my wife will encourage me, like, "Hey, like I know that like the whole home is your office, but when you're out here, like I need you to be here. Otherwise, I love you. You got to go back in that room." And
Yep.
I think it's been a really nice reminder to myself where if you ask me like, "Hey, Des, like what do you have to do today?" Like then the list is never ending. It just never ends
Yep.
because I could always be working on a project, a launch, a podcast episode. Like I'm just always working on something. But I do love that I have a partner. And even if for our listeners out there, if you don't have a partner, a friend, just having someone that'll hold you accountable. I think it's such a healing thing, dude. So I'm glad that we share that because if it wasn't for my wife, I probably would have a heart attack or something. So I'd just be like working myself to death.
Same. And guys, that'd be a big takeaway today because it's so funny, bro. I was laughing because I had that same conversation with my wife. She was like, it's confusing to the kids when you're working in the living room. She's like, they don't
Yes.
understand. She's like,
Yeah.
if they physically see you, they assume that you are ready for play.
You're
And
there.
then
Yeah.
when you tell them no, it disappoints them. She's like, whereas like if you're in the office working, they know, and the door's shut, they know dad's working right now. And that was a big switch for me as well.
Yeah, it's just it's a cool thing when you can get to that point where you can kind of check your ego and be like, oh, okay, that makes total sense. I can do what I need to do in the confines of boundaries. Where like this is where I
Yes.
work. These are the times that I work. But Ben, you're spot on, man. I think especially when you are building your business and building your dream, all of your time and energy can go there. But I think what is equally as important is when we work with clients, like it's an energy exchange. And your clients are going to know if you're stepping into it super stressed and all you're doing is working on your business. And your family sure as hell knows that too.
Yep. I saw a post the other day that got me right in the feels.
I love those.
It said something, and I'm gonna get all the numbers wrong, but it was like you get 18 summers with your kids. You
Oh, I
get
think I saw something similar. Yeah.
It's like they lose like 22 teeth. They lose blah 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 blah, and it's like you get 10 father-daughter dances or whatever. And so it's like you got to put it in perspective. Like I have my whole life to make money. Like I want to provide a nice life for my family, but
Yeah.
like once the kids are gone, they're gone, man.
They're gone. That's a reality I'm not ready for. Um,
Same.
but I saw something really similar where like obviously as kids like things are a mess around the house and it's like, hey, this isn't going to be forever. At some point,
Yes.
all of this stuff that you're complaining about, it's not going to be on the ground anymore because they're not going to be there. Like,
Yep.
at what point are you going to be okay with the present moment? And the message I took, Ben, and I'm so glad that like I think I should probably be picking your brain was like, hey, like go be messy, go like create some long lasting memories. I mean, that stuff is gold.
Bro, I agree 100%. Desi, I feel like we may need to do another podcast because I'm looking at the time and
I
I'm like,
know,
I
like
could
I
keep
just wanted
going.
to have you on mine, dude. Like that was the original plan. So for our listeners out there, we will be doing this on mine too.
Let's go, bro. Bro, and you're just one of those guys too. I just got to say this. Like you know when you talk to people, you can tell like their heart and like
Yeah,
a good person, bro, and you've got a good heart, and I appreciate that about you a lot.
that's why we connect, Ben. Likewise, man. I love what you're doing, and I'm just more excited that we get to like go to a different level of friendship and be like,
Yes.
yo, are we text friends yet?
I think we're going to be after today, obviously.
Yeah.
But Desi, can't believe I made it podcast. Like that's your big deal. Tell everybody like the best place to find you and how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. So I usually try to tell people like, hey, you can find me on IG at Desi Abeda. Go to my link in bio and see all the things that I'm doing. But like Ben had just said, the Can't Believe I Made It podcast is my gift to myself of overcoming my own limiting belief and taking messy action. And I think if I can give away one message to whoever that person is like one, hey, you're made with greatness. Like it's like 1 in a trillion chance that you're here.
Yes.
So like, how can I help you live out your purpose in whatever way that means, and help you to take some messy action? Because that's how we create progress. That's how you create your trajectory. So those are the things that I'm most passionate about right now, and that's where you can find me.
Let's go, bro. This was so good today.
It was.
Yo, I'm gonna put in the show notes where to find Desi on IG. Bro, I appreciate you so much, and we'll do this again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, bro.
Later, bro.